Hello, my name is Jordan Schutz from SF Game Development. Today, we're here with Tipalti, talking about how gaming companies scale user-generated content platforms. Come check it out.
My name is Evan Hebe. I'm a Director of Industry and Partner Marketing at Tipalti. I focus on helping companies in the gaming space, in the creator space, in the influencer space, figure out easier ways to make transactions, easier way to make payments. And we'll get into that a little bit further here in a couple of minutes. Today we're talking with two experts and longtime folks in the gaming industry, Marty and Matt, and I'll let them introduce themselves right now. Marty.
Cool. Hey, I'm Marty Kaplan. I have a little consultancy called the Fabulationary, and I'm basically a producer for many, many years. Been in lots of different places, lots of time, from Sega to Zynga to EA to independent small startups that didn't make it. So nowadays I am innovation director at Amber, and also consulting on a lot of different levels, mostly around innovation in games, technology, and teams. So
Appreciate it, Marty. And Matt, how about you?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Matt Marcoux. I'm the founding partner of Tryhard Consulting. You go to a consultant when you don't know what you don't know. So why do people go talk to me? I have about 16 years experience in the gaming industry, 13 at publishers. Most notably, I was at Riot Games for 4 years and EA for about 8 years, working on titles like League of Legends at Riot Games, Madden NFL, and Command & Conquer at EA. I've worn a variety of hats and disciplines. I've worked on marketing team. I've worked as a producer on product teams. I've worked on strategic initiatives, departments looking for the next new, whether it's a game or initiative. So I have a wide variety of experience putting cross-functional teams together to solve problems and find opportunities. And that's also what I've been doing in the consulting space for the past 2.5 years. Again, it's been a very interesting time in the games industry. So a lot of my focus is on new developing trends and things that will be the competitive advantage, the hockey stick, provide the hockey stick growth for the future.
Awesome. And super excited to get into our topic about UGC tonight, but just to set the stage a little bit and why Tipalti is here, who we are. I mentioned earlier that I run industry and partner marketing. For the past decade or so, I've been working at financial technology companies, but what's really cool about Tipalti, first of all, the name, Tipalti, what is that? It sounds more like a fish than it does anything else, but really, Tipalti is a Hebrew word that means I handled it. And that's what we set out to do, is we set out to handle your payments, the most challenging payments you can think of, cross-border, in different currencies, splits, all that type of stuff. We make it really, really super easy. And just to really bring that example home, two of the household names that you may have heard of, Twitch and Roblox are two of our biggest customers. We handle all of the payments for every streamer on Twitch, all of the payments for every developer on Roblox. So if you've ever worked with either of those companies and got paid by them, you got paid by Tipalti, and we really sit in the background of that. We help manage all of those payments, manage all the challenging stuff, all of the compliance, all of the issues dealing with banks, all that type of stuff for a business that can be really, really hard. If you're a company that has multiple nations that you're paying into, you have to have a banking relationship almost always in each one of those countries. Tipalti really makes that process a lot smoother, a lot simpler, a lot easier. You can find out more about us if you go to tipalti.com, or you'll see a few of us walking around tonight that you can chat with. But we'd love to tell you more about it. I know a lot of you are devs and working for businesses like this, but I'm sure many of you have that entrepreneurial spirit as well, and might have a business one day that could use a solution like ours. So without further ado, I would like to get into it. While I switch over to our first slide about UGC, starting with you, Matt, why don't you tell us about one of your favorite UGC games, either current or from days past or anything in between?
I'm going to date myself a little bit, but it symbolizes my journey and what kind of has set me off in the past, and what I think is becoming more and more relevant is I grew up in the era where when you were a gamer, like, you played a little bit of every genre because there were only so many games to go around. So the games that inspired me are games like Warcraft 3 and Half-Life. And I think part of what inspired me is the variability, the modding that came out of both. There were amazing, not only esports, which were near and dear to my heart, but just amazing creative opportunities, amazing communities that were founded. And the reason they had longevity was not only the amazing tech and the publisher commitment, but it was the modability, the ability to engage people and have like the foundations of live services. And so, you know, I don't want to be like that boomer, but like, you know, I think from a business standpoint, there's been a tremendous amount of evolution that's powered companies. But I yearn for the days of the fun, like, you know, the kind of like the hardcore, almost impossible tasks that came out of some of those early games. And yeah, so Warcraft 3, Half-Life, always my jam. I could talk for hours about those two.
Love it. Yeah, Marty, how about you?
I'm gonna date myself even worse. Although it's very current, actually. Dungeons and Dragons is my like go-to. I'm sure there's nobody in here who's ever played it before. Roll the d20. But the reason that it's so compelling since the 70s all the way to now, when it's arguably bigger than it's ever been, is because it became a hobby. And there's a lesson there that I think is really important for anybody thinking about, how do I use UGC in my game? The way that you use it is that you make the game a world that people can play in, create in, and spread for you to other fans. Because it's their hobby, right? And that's the difference between playing a game and having it as a hobby. You have to provide tools to, just like the modding tools, that kind of stuff, thinking about how you use UGC in the modern world, thinking about how it's really easy to stream now of a game or a tabletop game of D&D, like Critical Role does, to billions of people, right? So for me, my touchstone is usually D&D for any social gaming experience, and any sort of tool set that I make is usually informed by kind of the ideas, like how do I let people take all these pieces and recombine them, put them together, and show off what they're doing as a UGC strategy.
Yeah, and it's super cool because you could see all the big games today when you think of UGC. If you think of Fortnite, if you think of Roblox, if you think of some of these, you know, massive hits these days all across many platforms, they all have the same concepts coming from these original games like D&D and, you know, board games that people grew up on playing, and that's part of the nostalgia factor, I think, that really gets people. But leads really nicely into the first question I wanted to talk about. So you guys can see that huge number up here. Today, UGC, this is one estimate. I saw estimates that were even more, some that were a little less. But one estimate says about the market for UGC today is about $10 billion, which is pretty insane to think about. And it's going to be growing further and further. So what I wanted to just set the stage on, and I know you guys are all pretty well versed in this, but what's like the spectrum of UGC that we're seeing today? Maybe starting with you, Marty, and then Matt, you can jump into that on when you're ready.
Billion, not million.
Oh, sorry, I meant to say billion with a B.
Key number. The spectrum, you know, you're seeing is everything from, it's easy to just share an achievement, right? It becomes like, a lot of times I like to think about these things like, how do they attack the three main areas of what you're doing when you're making a game: engagement, retention, monetization. Now, I don't want to sound like a black-hearted product manager. I'm a producer, so I love things. I have a beating heart in my chest. But you do need to think about these things as you're trying to create a game in the abstract, and then you go down into the weeds and make your work of art with technology. So the engagement piece, right, is basically making something that is so fun that you got to share it. You become a fan. And making it easy to share things, whether it's on social media or, like I was mentioning, taking a video and streaming it, that kind of stuff needs to be easier and easier. And it needs to be evident through the gameplay that you're playing that something cool is happening here, I can talk about it, and you'll think it's cool too. And that starts the sort of fan base that you're building of me as a creator using a game that you as a game maker made to make a bunch of super fans that make your market bigger and bigger, and more people buy it, more people play it, and there's more and more interesting things being done with this thing that you created that you sort of put out in the wild, and people are making their own in a way that spreads it. Because now there's so much being made. I guess this is another piece that we could talk about in this context. You really got to do something for discoverability that allows people to really run with what you make. Otherwise, it'll kind of get lost in the noise. And a really key signal has always been word of mouth. And the best kind of word of mouth is when somebody makes something that they're delighted by, and then they delight others by showing it off.
I'll start with the warm heart answer, but I'll be the bad guy a little bit. I'll go to the
right,
cold-hearted operations. But
chaotic evil.
but your job as a game maker is to surprise and delight your audience any moment of the day when they're bored, right? That is your job. And the value of UGC, drafting off kind of the internet, is you have the wisdom of the masses. You can ask them, hey, how would you like to be entertained? And more what UGC is having your I forgot what that Capital One commercial was, but it's like they treat you like you would treat you. That's UGC. Is you have the opportunity to empower your communities to make this their hobby and build off of your IP, your ideas, and treat and have that as a toolbox. In the same way that you need to give your engineers give your designers tools, this is giving your community the tools to be advocates, to not only build things within the game, but be advocates in a marketing sense as well. So that's the warm-hearted answer. I would say, like, from an operational standpoint, I think of the phases of business and where UGC can come in, because I work with a lot of founders, and I work with a lot of brands in trying to figure out, reading the tea leaves, finding out the next trend. And I've seen UGC used at the pitch level initially, like the pitch to VCs, developing presentations and decks and replacing kind of like art functions, designer functions, having business leaders who are probably not great artists sometimes taking that over. I've seen UGC develop initial like art concepts, again, for things that are not your when you're building out your game, your core product. You're going to have your secret sauce elements, right, that are yours, your differentiators. But man, when you've seen like one tree in the background of a game, you've seen them all. There's definitely places where, both. I guess it's more of an AI example, but crowdsourcing, looking at assets you can leverage. That's UGC comes into play at that level, and then fast forwarding to being funded, putting out concepts. If we look at like the marketing angles and thinking of your community will build content for you. So engaging with them, in Discords. It sounds like this crowd is not shy at all the Discord, but thinking about not only your crowd from helping you generate game assets, but word of mouth, hype, I guess lore. Like when I look at the popularity of games back in the day, there's lore that's developed around the players of the game. I think a famous example is in Elden Ring. Let me solo her. I think I have that name right. Like that person, right, became part of the lore of the game and made you feel really cool about being part of the community, even though it had not a lot to do with the actual avatar gameplay. It was a story around it. So when I think about the mechanics of what you think about at each stage of game development and product launch. There are multiple ways that UGC can plug in there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great place for us to kind of begin this conversation around UGC. And we're going to get more into that AI angles that Matt just spoke to. But I think the big thing from a takeaway perspective that we see from the business side is that these businesses are reliant on folks like yourselves, on other creators, on other influencers to make their products great these days. And the one thing that we as a developer community or influencers can really focus on is continuing to make cool things so that people are wanting to continue to play the games. But you guys are refreshing on the question here is what I saw happening there in the background.
No, I was just thinking of the job that won't be replaced by AI is a good masseuse, which is what I might need after reading those questions like this.
Don't worry, I can read it for you too. And it's a little long, but basically the summary of the question is is AI good for UGC or not, and how is it affecting the UGC market today? And maybe Matt, we can go to you because you just were alluding to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, how do I say it? I'm a creative person, but I'm not a crafty person. So the limit of my creativity was drawing like stick figures. I'm a decent writer, but when it comes to putting my ideas into visual form, like I'm just terrible at it. So what I was alluding to, kind of what's helped me work on my own pitches and help other founders are AI tools that can help me shape graphic design. So that, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's any secret, but like, from someone who's been in the industry this long, like it's just changed the way I've seen, pitches and concepts and deck making, not only to, VCs, but also internal ideation sessions. It's really broadened the participation from all facets of people at a company.
Yeah, so I mean, when you think about the pipeline of production for a game, you got kind of, usually it goes about concept phase, production phase, launch phase, live ops. I have seen in many projects at this point, like for years, AI affect each one of those in different ways in different disciplines. So for instance, in the concept phase, the ideation and communication that is now being like accelerated by literal like a 20% hours at least savings, right? For concept artists and art directors, just communicating with the rest of the team through AI generation and then paintovers is totally like legit. That's happening. It's okay. You don't need to be scared of it. You should do it. It's really great because it is basically using your time better to get further along and to communicate better, which in a team is totally essential. And the same thing holds for production across engineering, across sound, across like all these different things. You're able to, in these early stages and then the mid stages of game development, we are accelerating things by at least 20% by using AI tools. But there are tools. They're not making it, right? The human soul is still involved. And then in launch, when the PMs get involved who have no souls, they will use AI tools to do interesting analysis, do like all of their sort of mathy predicting the future stuff that also still saves time. So the overall thing that I have seen across multiple projects at Amber and for other groups that I'm consulting with is just a general savings of time using the tools that doesn't really affect the quality. The quality is still all about the people. And so people who suck will make stuff that sucks. But people who are great will also make stuff that's great. And I think that the UGC will extend into that live ops piece. And if you're building tools that have AI elements, or even if they don't, and people are kind of, your fan base is kind of using them anyway to make memes or to make fun stuff, just to have fun, that's what you want, right? And so you should enable them to do that and have a plan for that when you're launching in closed alpha, closed beta, etc. Like have grist for the mill of the fan base. And the smarter you are about it and the more leverage you give them, the more they're going to work for you as a game developer to promote what you're making and what you love so that they love it too and they can show it off.
I guess I'll interject one cold-hearted ops point because I had a fascinating discussion with a lawyer friend of mine on the intersection of IP and AI.
A lawyer friend?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I get along with the lawyers and accountants. Like, someone's got to do that work, right?
Sure.
But we'll have some more warm-hearted AI to do in the future, maybe.
A 10-foot pole? Yeah.
Like, hopefully AI replaces them first, right? That's where I think...
That's happening.
But for the time being, I need them. And, I think the practical advice I'll give in this situation is, yes, like, enable your community. Just be careful about, your secret sauce components, your key art, your key characters, etc. Again, there's a million ways to draw a tree. But when you're training AI, obviously if you can keep it local and it's truly your AI, like it gives you more flexibility to train your key art. But don't put your secret sauce through publicly available tools because you're giving that away. So you want to be careful about that. You want to understand some of the legalities of all that, which is ever changing and it's confusing. But yeah, make sure you hold on to enough of that secret sauce on your own, and don't use it on everything, but use it again where it's the boring stuff that no one's excited about working on, like drawing a million trees. Yes, automate that. Like leverage that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, the soul needs to be there, but it needs to be your soul. You should own it.
Yeah, don't put your soul through the AI. I think is what we're saying.
Don't sell your soul to your fan base.
Put the lawyers and the accountants, feed them to the AI.
I think we've seen some musicians do that. It doesn't work out well.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly why tools like Tipalti are here to, take the boring crap off of your plate and make it a lot easier for you. But just out of curiosity, I've asked this question a couple of times in a past few presentations that we've given. Just by show of hands, who's using AI in their everyday work or personal life? And I'm not surprised that's like 80% of the crowd in here. And I am guilty of it as well. And businesses like ours are implementing.
They're our little friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're all in the same boat. We're all making the boring stuff easier. I think that's the win for us, and then we can make the cool stuff even cooler. So I think that's the big win for us here too. All right, let's move right along. So this is talking all about monetization. We spoke a lot about how businesses like Tipalti are helping companies monetize, helping developers get paid a lot faster, those sorts of things. So I won't drone on too much about that unless anybody has a question or anything that we want to answer. But maybe starting with you, Marty, how can companies really monetize their UGC offering, and what are some of the takeaways that maybe the audience can think about when trying to monetize UGC combined with AI and make that a lot easier?
Yeah, I mean, what you see happening is the most basic way to really start your program is to do an affiliate situation. So maybe there's an economy in your game, you've got a certain currency, and if people bring people into your game through whatever means, it triggers something in your back end for their account, and they get some reward for that. So you want to set up a virtuous circle where the more they send stuff out from your game, the more people see it, come back, register, and just get into your funnel, as the black-hearted PMs will say. That's something you can set up pretty simply and easily, and then start monetizing the number of people coming in, sharing stuff, and then more people coming in through basically identifying people who are sharing that stuff, and then setting up an API that talks to Tipalti's system, so that you either have a budget that you're giving people money for spreading things around, or some other mechanism from your publisher or from other folks where people are starting to share things and they're getting a benefit in your game from it. So that's kind of the basic affiliate program that people have probably already participated in. There's plenty of other strategies where you're looking at monetizing via an in-game store or watching videos into an ad network. That kind of stuff is all hackable. There's lots of different things that you can integrate, and those all integrate with Tipalti. So if you're using Apps Flyer for ads or something like that, they talk back and forth, no problem. And then, of course, getting influencers to play your game on stream. Sometimes you pay them, sometimes you give them a free copy so they can review it. You need to have a strategy around all these things and kind of have a roadmap of how much engineering effort, how much art effort, how much of your time and brain is going to be dedicated to looking outside, getting people set up with the tools that they need to come back to you. And so one of those tools that are starting to emerge is having an AI system where you can easily generate an image that's a custom image for them that they can go share. That would be an example of something that I have seen people start to use. And that's connected to the affiliate program. People come back, everybody's happy, they had a good time making something cool based around the IP of your game, and you have a new user, or 5 or 10 or 15 or 100, depending on how big their audience is.
Yeah, and it's all about setting up a system where everybody wins. It's your game is winning by getting more eyeballs on it. The people are winning by being able to share it and getting paid for that. So it's setting up a system where everyone feels like they have stake in it, and being able to earn, whether that's earning monetarily or earning eyeballs or earning more views of the cool things that you're creating. So I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have from what Marty was saying. And Matt, go ahead.
My interjection. I mean, this sounds Captain Obvious when you lay it out. I cannot stress like how much time I've seen wasted. You think people would be really motivated to like claim their money and handle their finances, but a lot of these creators, like all of us, would rather spend our time doing the fun stuff instead of managing the books, managing the finances. I have, man, it pains me to think how many like weeks, months of my life or my team's life that have been lost to dealing with what should be like really simple like accounting issues, and like literally trying to give people six-figure checks, a lot of five-figure payments, and just like the hassles of figuring out the platform, getting them to understand the right waivers and paperwork, just so much time wasted. And it's hard to convey the soul sucking. I think Marty, of all the soul sucking things Marty's talked about, I think this has sucked the most soul out of anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think that Tipalti does such a great job at letting developers make that frictionless as possible. And if you're not doing this, the key to making a great game that grows and scales is to make the Fatui frictionless, to make the power leveling or the gameplay fun frictionless, and to make buying things in it frictionless. And this is now moving to outside the game where you're having fan-based promotion using tools that you give them. Paying out to that should also be frictionless, and the more it is, the greater your leverage.
So my advice is when you're finding your accountants or your money managers, don't find the person who wants to wallow in that misery. Find the person who understands it's important, it needs to be done fast, but we need to automate this. That's the accountant, product manager, whomever that you want to find in this.
And there's definitely two different schools of thoughts when it comes to that. There's some people out there that just want to do it all themselves and manage it all by themselves and maybe save you a few pennies. And then there's the other people who are thinking about, how can we get to the next level of scale and how can we continue to let you do what you want to do. Last question that I have for you guys today, and then I definitely want to give some time back if there's any questions in the audience or just give more time back to mix and mingle. But really, the last thing that I wanted to ask is just how can your UGC content stand out in the crowd of games today? And any predictions that we have around UGC into 2025? Maybe starting with you, Matt.
Yeah, I think stand out. There's different nuances of this because there is certainly opportunity to leverage your features or the cool stuff you're doing in marketing. I mean, I think of like the Fortnite Marvel crossover. I think was a watershed moment. One of the personal watershed moments I had and lived and helped ideate was while working on Madden. There were two facets. Madden, people think, well, that game never changes. So, but we want to prove people wrong, but in a way that made sense for the audience. So some initiatives that we did using UGC content, or at least having the community be able to shape it. One was we face scanned players, like real people who play Madden, and we put them in the game. We lived the ethos, like if it's in the game, it's in the game. And we wanted to celebrate our community by putting them in the stands and also having them as coaches on the sideline. So it was a way of using likenesses. We didn't turn over the keys completely in that initiative, but recognizing our community, people who had contributed in various ways, and putting them in the game. The other thing from a brand perspective is we initiated the first digital stadium rights deal. Where we branded a stadium in Madden Pizza Hut Stadium. We built a completely custom stadium. We had custom elements with fans in there. And I think the era of games, a lot of this was a little bit more on control or on the rails. But, think about, you might not know where your community will take your product that will create a great moment of publicity. You may have some inklings, but there are moments to prove people wrong or create just like awesome collaborative moments. And I think those are the things you want to aim for strategically that will attract a new audience to your product. But certainly there's other ways that you can work within your community to create wow moments.
Yeah, I think that like looking into 2025 and beyond, like it's easy to say like AI will take over, but like what's going to be interesting is going back to Dungeons and Dragons in the 70s around the table, and how do you put your players in the game? How do they get even more, fall in love with the world that you've created, with the other characters you've created? You can literally start to put them there in their gameplay, visible to other people, like via tools that you can give them using AI, using a way to stream stuff that's showing yourself in there. An example is I'm working with a group called the Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult, and they provided 3D art for all of the characters that you can own uniquely. It's like collectibles. And so I made a stream playing their MMO, which is like a 2D MMO, with a 3D VTuber made from that 3D model, driven by my webcam, onto Twitch. So I was like playing as my character playing my character in the game, running around with like all of my friends doing like all the MMO dungeon crawling. And so, that stream was like the best stream I ever had and the most views and it all like linked back to the community that I was with and the game that I was playing. And so I would say that's a great example of like how that, I mean, I got thousands of views for that, which was, basically free marketing because I love the project. And they also gave me something. They gave me a 3D model, right? And so I was able to like mess around, do cool stuff with it. And so that kind of, allowing that kind of experimentation, you're going to see more and more of that. Providing those assets to players so that they can make cool content for you to promote your stuff and themselves in the win-win kind of situation. And then I think that you're going to see more and more ease of access to sort of monetization that is not just going to the dev, but going to the fan or the creator. Which is where Tipalti comes in, right? Like you guys are set up to support this stuff as it becomes possible for almost everybody to make an in-game store where they're recombining or making things like they do already in Roblox or in Unreal Engine for Fortnite and getting paid to do that. So I would say that's another trend we're going to see more and more, where there's a monetization aspect to the participation of creators with games that occurs in the game as opposed to just with streaming, which is also pretty extensive.
I love it. And I'll pause this there. I want to just say a big thank you to Marty and Matt, and just another round of applause for everybody. I really appreciate it.